wounded soldiers returning to the city after defeat by Germans. The temple demonstrated its patriotic nature and alliance to Russia. There are accounts from monks in the temples describing a situation not at all conducive to study and prayer. Due to the continuous flow of sick and injured soldiers, service did not take place. Along with the people of Russia, the temple was suffering the effects of war. As the Russian army was beginning to defeat the Germans, relations inside Russia began to deteriorate. A revolution was taking place, and all citizens, including the Russian Buddhists, were hopeful for the future. Dorozhev wrote about the new possibilities opening up for religious freedom in Russia now that the persecution of all other religions would come to an end in this new government system. The Bolshevik Revolution of October 1917 resulted in a change of power, landing in the hands of Sir Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, or Lenin. Lenin aspired to rile up the masses of peasants and gain their support in procuring himself the Soviet leader of Russia. As Russia's new Soviet leader struggled to assert and keep his power in the vast country, his tactics became increasingly questionable and inappropriate. The terrorizing rule of Lenin and his men created an atmosphere that was not only prejudiced and persecutory towards Russian Buddhists or other religious sects, but rather cruel and detrimental to the free will of all Russian people. Following the footsteps of Lenin, his successor Stalin began to rule Russia, maintaining control through terror. The anti-religious drive in Russia was growing fervently, and most citizens were losing any faith that Buddhism, much less any religion, was something special and worth following. Slowly the flame of Russian Buddhists dimmed. The fate of the Buddhist temple in St. Petersburg was coming to a sad end as the 1900s roared on. Spiritual life went on in the temple, with few monks and students in the form of teaching, studying, debate, and practice, but the last ceremony was held there in 1933 to honor the 13th Dalai Lama after his death. After much persecution and anti-religious propaganda of all divisions in Russia, finally the temple, along with others, was secularized on April 22, 1938. Unfortunately, the most spectacular treasure, the great statue of Buddha, never completed the journey to the museum because it was dropped, shattered into pieces, and dumped into the Nevka River without ceremony. After Stalin's death in 1953, revival of interest, study, and practice of Buddhism took place in European Russia. Under Mikhail Gorbachev, Age of Glasnost, the environment was freer, and Buddhists were no longer viewed as treacherous traitors to the Russian government. Lamas were free to travel to eastern Russia to study and practice. After centuries of suffering, the Buddhist faith is still deeply rooted in the conscious and subconscious of the Russian Buddhists, and thanks to the end of the untruthful and discriminatory persecution, the Buddhist faith is destined to gain following in Russia.